Imposter syndrome. That feeling within you that says, who am I to be doing this? I'm not special. I'm not super intelligent or competent. There are more people out there that are much more qualified than I am. So why should I even bother trying? I'll never really measure up anyway. I'll never be good enough. I'll never be as successful as I want to be. So why bother? It's that lingering feeling of self-doubt or hesitation or fear within you that comes up whenever you're about to do something that you want to do or that you know you need to do, and it convinces you to play it small, to not move forward, to not do the thing you want to do, to not go after your dreams. It convinces you to stay in your comfort zone where it's safe, where it's comfortable, right? And I want to share with you today some of the things that I've learned over the past several years dealing with imposter syndrome myself, dealing with a lot of insecurity and self-doubt, especially as it relates to starting a business, being a leader, putting myself out there in the world. If you're a creative person or someone with big dreams, then one thing you definitely need to do is put yourself out there more. You need to share what you have with the world. And doing that can feel very scary, and it can bring up a lot of what you might call imposter syndrome. So today I want to share with you 3 of the major things that I've learned, or little realizations and insights that I've had over the years that have helped me quiet that negative voice of imposter syndrome and move forward to achieve some of my biggest goals and dreams. So believe it or not, intelligent, competent, successful people often experience imposter syndrome and self-doubt more than those who are not competent or intelligent or successful. And the reason for this is something called the curse of knowledge. And to put it simply, it just means the more you know, the more you realize how much you don't know. So the more you learn in life, the more growth-oriented you are comparing what you know to what you could know. You're comparing your current knowledge to a higher level of knowledge because you're focused on accessing those higher levels of knowledge, accessing more growth and expansion in your life. So you're always comparing yourself to what's above you. And in that quest, we often forget how far we have already come. So what happens is the more you learn, the more you realize that there's so much that you don't know. The more you realize that there's so many perspectives that might be more true or more accurate or more wise than your current perspectives. And so this can lead to self-doubt because you start to realize that you don't know everything, that you're not an absolute expert on everything, and you never really could be because there's just so much to learn, so much to know, so much to do. So an abundance of knowledge leads to an abundance of opportunities, an abundance of options available to us. And the more options we see available to us, the more we're prone to doubt the current option or the current path that we're taking now, because we realize that maybe there's a better path out there. So we can start to doubt our own path. But the solution to this is actually quite simple. Although if you're a growth-oriented person, you're always going to be comparing your current experience to a higher level or something that you could achieve beyond where you're at now, or a higher level of knowledge or understanding or wisdom or whatever. You'll always have some of that. But what I really want to encourage you to do is to stop thinking so much about growing and expanding and evolving yourself personally, and start thinking more about how you can be helpful to others with what you already do know. Even though there's so much more that you could know, that you could experience, even though there's perspectives on life that might be more true, more accurate, more wise than your perspective right now, even though you're not at the top of the mountain, it doesn't mean you can't reach your hand back and help people who are below you, help people that need what you already have. So don't forget how far you've already come. Even though you're focused on that mountaintop or wherever you're trying to go, realize that there are a lot of people in this world that are not as fortunate as you, that don't have the knowledge you have, that don't have the wisdom you have, people that need your help. And that's what I want to encourage you to focus on. And this can eliminate imposter syndrome very rapidly because it eliminates the comparison game. You're no longer comparing yourself to people that are above you or more successful than you or whatever. Your focus is on serving other people. And when you're serving other people, there's no competition there. There's nothing to fear because your motive is more pure. It's genuine. It's authentic. You're here to serve people. You're not here to be perfect. You're not here to be the best at everything. You're not here to be the most wise, the most knowledgeable. None of that. You're here to be as helpful as you can in every moment of your life, in every day of your life, to be as helpful as you can given what you have at this moment. And in the future, you'll know more, you'll have more success, different perspectives, and then you'll be able to help in a different way. But for now, you're able to help in the way you're able to help, and that's all there is to it. The other thing I want to talk about is the expert myth. This is a deeply ingrained bias or belief in society that basically says, if you're not 1,000 miles ahead of everyone else, then you're not really qualified to teach anyone. If you're not an expert on the subject, then you have nothing to offer. And you see this a lot in, for example, the medical and health field, where it's often, people believe that you can only trust someone with medical or health advice if they have like a degree in health and nutrition, or if they're a certified doctor or a practitioner of some kind with a certification, right? And we're kind of brainwashed to even believe that anyone who's not a doctor isn't really qualified to give medical advice, right? Even though there might be people out there that aren't doctors that actually are very knowledgeable and actually might be more helpful than a doctor could ever be, because they have a certain area of specialty or a certain life experience that shows them a path that is effective and true. Even though that is the case, oftentimes, people are discouraged from sharing information because they're not an expert or they're not qualified. And it's also just seen in the general belief where a lot of people think that you have to go to college in order to get a good job, or you have to go to college to be an entrepreneur or be good at something or to be qualified to do something. You have to have a certificate on your wall. And this leads to what I call the expert myth. It's this myth that says that you can only be helpful if you have a certificate, a degree, or if you're so far ahead of everyone else that you're just perceived as the best in the world at what you do, and you're the so-called expert or guru, right? And this is completely false. I want you to realize that, as I kind of mentioned before, you don't have to be 1,000 steps ahead. You don't have to be at the mountaintop to help people who are down at the bottom of the mountain, right? Even if you're just one step up on the mountain, you can reach your hand back and help people who are no steps up the mountain, right? They're on ground level, and you're just one step ahead. You're not even close to the top of the mountain, but that doesn't mean you can't be helpful, right? You don't have to be an expert to be helpful in this world. You're here to serve not everyone, but only the people that can relate to your journey, to that can resonate with you, that can actually use your help. The person at the mountaintop might not even be able to relate to the person who's on the ground level still, right? They're so far apart that there's no resonance there. They can't relate because they're living in two different realities. Maybe when the person gets closer to the top, then they can, learn from the person at the top. But while someone's down at the bottom, they don't need that. They need someone who's at a more middle ground, someone who's not an expert, but someone who has some experience, right? So if you're a creative person or an aspiring leader, which I hope you are if you're watching this channel, this video, because that's what I help people with. I help people become highly paid leaders who monetize their knowledge and expertise to achieve freedom and make a difference in this world. So if that's you, then realize that you can start right where you are, and you can just start being helpful right where you are. And as you go along, you'll progress, and you'll have a different perspective and a different thing to share, a different level of knowledge or whatever. But it doesn't matter, because you are here to help the people just a couple steps behind you or one step behind you, because those are the people that need you the most. Those are the people that can benefit from you the most. Those are the people you're here to serve. You're not here to serve the people above you, right? So don't compare yourself to them. You're not here to serve the people 1,000 steps behind you either. You're here to serve those who are just a few steps behind you. And I think having that perspective can really ground you and help you move forward and escape this idea of perfection, this expert myth that you have to be so far ahead of everyone else where they will perceive you as the expert or guru who will lead them to the mountaintop. A lot of people aren't looking for that. They're just looking for a helping hand, someone who they can relate to, someone who's real, authentic, and genuine, who is just there to help them with whatever they need help with, right? So focus more on being helpful than being perfect, right? As I mentioned before, that is the mantra. Seek to be helpful, not perfect. So the third and final thing I want to talk about today as it relates to imposter syndrome is something I call the teacher myth. And this is another built-in bias or belief in society that basically says you can only teach something if you're already an expert in it, or you can only teach something if you have already done it yourself, right? And I like to bust this myth with a common, relatable example of professional sports, professional athletes. If you look at professional athletes, a lot of their coaches, trainers, people that assist them in learning and getting better at their sport, some of them have never even played the sport of basketball or whatever it is. Let's say it's LeBron James, right? A lot of LeBron James trainers or coaches, or at least some of them, have played either no basketball or very little basketball in their lives. Maybe they just played in high school or something, right? A lot of coaches in the NBA or the NFL and other leagues never played professional sports themselves, yet they are coaching people and teaching them how to be professional athletes, right? Just because you haven't done something or you haven't achieved a level of expertise at something doesn't necessarily mean you can't be a great teacher at that thing. So yes, it is helpful to have already done something yourself or to even be an expert at it before you start teaching it, but it's not entirely necessary. You can actually start from wherever you are, whatever you currently know, whatever you currently have to offer the world, and you can just start sharing that. You don't have to pretend to be at a place you're not. You can just focus, again, as I said many times before, on being as helpful as you can be. And that's how many of the greatest teachers started. They didn't start as experts, but through the process of teaching, through sharing what they have with others, through that process, they gradually became experts, and they became perceived as experts because people could see that they were focused on their craft, that they were getting good at it, that they were becoming competent, that they knew more than the people they were teaching knew, right? So it goes back to the last thing. You only have to be one step ahead of the person you're trying to help, of the person you're trying to lead or teach, right? You don't have to be so far ahead, and you might even be behind that person in some areas, but you're ahead of them in other areas. And that this kind of relates to the professional sports analogy. If you look at a coach in the NFL, they might not be as good of a football player as the football players they're coaching, but they might be a better strategic thinker, right? They might have a better strategy and a better understanding of the plays that they run on the field and how it all fits together and the timing of the game or whatever, you know. You don't have to be an expert at everything. You just need to find your niche, find that thing that you're really good at, the thing that you can focus on and become good at and get better at it than anyone else. And if you just focus on that little niche of yours, you'll eventually be perceived as an expert. But you don't start as an expert. You don't have to be an expert before you start sharing. I really just like to encourage people to start from wherever they are and stop comparing themselves to how far they still have to go, and instead look back at the people they can help, because that eliminates the imposter syndrome. Because imposter syndrome really just comes from comparing where you are to where you could be, a hypothetical, imagined future scenario of what could be or how much better you could be than you are. And then when you compare your current self to that future self that you wish you were, you feel self-doubt, you feel fear and anxiety because you're not good enough when you're comparing yourself to that thing that's better than who you are, right? You're never going to be good enough. You'll never measure up to that imaginary ideal in your mind, that future future self that you want to be. It doesn't mean that you won't become that future self, but you're not going to become that by continuously comparing yourself to it and then feeling bad about why you're not already there, or why you'll never get there because it's too hard, or you're not really that good, or whatever. All the excuses your mind makes up, these are just basically rationalizations for fear, excuses to keep you from moving forward, to stop you from really taking action. And I know it can be hard to switch your mind and to really switch your mind to a more service-oriented approach, switch your mind to just helping others and trying to give more than you're trying to receive. Because as a creative person or a leader, you're probably trying to get for yourself as well. You're trying to earn money from what you do. You want to provide for your family. There's things that you want to achieve personally in your life, right? But remember the mantra, everyone knows it: give and you shall receive. Give and you shall receive. I think this is one of the greatest laws of life, laws of the universe, whatever you want to call it. And it holds true in my experience. When you're focused on giving, at least most of the time, you're focused on helping, on serving, on doing whatever you can to be helpful, even though you're not perfect, even though you're not an expert, even though you're not at the top of the mountain yet. None of that matters when your focus is on service. Service is the key to being successful in life, in business, and in feeling good about yourself, to having emotional, mental, and spiritual well-being. You need to be focused more on service than you are on getting for yourself and getting ahead and, these personal accomplishments that a lot of people like to talk about. I don't really put much weight on those personal accomplishments, because I know that if I focus on serving people to the best of my ability with what I currently know and have and my current understanding of things, if I just focus on using what I already have, what I've been blessed with to help and serve others, I know that the personal accomplishments will come. It will come naturally without effort. It's just icing on the cake. I don't have to focus on that. You don't have to focus on that either. You don't have to focus on where you want to be necessarily. I mean, you can have a general vision of where you want to go, a general direction, but know that to get where you want to go, it comes through service. It comes through being helpful to other people. It becomes from being someone valuable in this world with something valuable to offer. And if you don't have much, it doesn't matter. You just start with what you do have to offer and focus on becoming more valuable over time, becoming more helpful over time in whatever you choose to do. So the general theme here is seek to be helpful, not perfect, not successful even. Seek more to be helpful, and the success and accomplishment will come automatically. You don't have to think much about it. So that's all for today's video. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel, please, and let me know in the comments what you thought. See you in the next one. Peace.